You go in to do 1 hour of maths, and there's 30 kids and one teacher. So the teacher now teaches the whatever it is that that you're going to be covering today. Then maybe they do that in the first 30 minutes of the lesson. That means the remaining 30 minutes is you practically doing whatever it is that you need to do. That means that on average, every student in the class has 1 minute of the teacher's time to explain something if they didn't get it, to make something clearer. And if you've got a couple of students that need that help more often than others, or just get the attention more than others, that means there's a large swathe of the class that are getting zero guidance if they don't understand something. If that happens lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson, you end up a couple of weeks down the line, you don't have a clue what you're doing anymore, because everything that you're supposed to be learning is built upon each other. System built on system built on system. If you don't understand the lowest level of system, when you get up to sort of 5, 6, 7 levels above it, you don't have a clue what's going on. At which point you're unmotivated. You're sat in the class thinking, well, why should I fucking bother then? I might as well just sit here and play on my dick. Because
wow, you have just described my entire experience in the education system.
Exactly.
You summed it up in a
in the
sentence.
beginning, and now I'm stuck with.
yeah, so if you can make this stuff cheap and affordable, if you can, it's literally the same. It's the ethos I've got is if I can develop this one suit with all this different technology in it, it can be broken down and they will have separate products. Then those products can become marketable. Those marketable products can then perpetuate, which drives down the cost of the technologies that's contained within them. It's saturating the market in exactly the same way that Elon Musk is doing with lithium polymer batteries. He's got these gigafactories where he's producing these things just way above demand, because if you saturate the market enough, they come down in price enough that they become affordable for everyone. And it's not even like a theory. It works, because the very power banks that I'm using inside the power supply control units for the website, the power banks, are powered by exactly the same cells that Elon uses for his Tesla products. So it's working. I'm a big believer. I don't know if I've done a video on Lawcore yet about it, but I'm a big believer in transhumanism, and I'm passionate about cybernetics and prosthetics, because I worked on them, and some of the stuff I've seen with like cybernetic legs. There's a guy called Hugh Herr who runs a company called Bionics, and he's developed. He had a hiking accident. Frostbite took both of his legs. He was an avid rock climber as well, and literally a few weeks after he was out of hospital, he developed kind of his own crude prosthetic legs and was climbing at the same level that he was before he left his legs. A few weeks after leaving the hospital, being told you've got no legs, and he's developed and iterated and developed and iterated and got the legs to the point now where they are so close to our anatomical counterparts in their strength, in their output force, in their ability to restore function to someone who's lost their legs, that we're getting to the point now where the technology is starting to edge, where they're becoming better than what we've got. Leg technology is really getting there, because without shitting all over the work that brilliant minds have done, legs are relatively easy when you weigh it up against the complexity of hands. The dexterity of being able to do all this fine motor function, knowing how strong to grip something without breaking the bloody thing. The fact that they're the tools in which we interface with the world. These are extremely complicated to replicate, which is why hands are nowhere near as sophisticated as the legs. And the reason that that's happening is because we haven't developed the resolution to be able to detect fine individual muscle resolution for detecting muscle impulses, and we do not have actuators or articulators or whatever that are small enough but powerful enough to replicate the muscles of the hands. I mean, if you consider, most people can hold a bar and hang their entire weight. Now, by definition, you're able to hang your entire weight with hooked fingers, which means that effectively on one hand, so if I weigh 84 point something kilos, if I hang at the edge of a wall like this, each hand is experiencing 42 kilograms of downward force. So I can hold, effectively, 42 kilograms of weight per hand with just the crook of my fingers. We don't have articulators that can do that. We do not have robotics that can do that. We do not have electroactive polymers that can do that. So if I can develop technologies that push it that way, that edge it a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer, it will happen eventually.
You'd think, but she's also a fool guy, isn't she? Margaret Parangoski was as to blame for all of the things that happened to the Spartans as Catherine Halsey was. Margaret Parangoski wasn't put up for trial. They were happy to allow Halsey to be the fool person. So, yeah, in theory, she could have effectively only agents as her legal representatives because she's a civilian and she's being tried rather than in a court-martial in a normal judicial system. But only just want to run with the idea of, it's just a crazy scientist we gave perhaps a little bit too much rope to, and she hung herself with it. Reasonable doubt. I mean, if you think, okay, so the Office of Naval Intelligence had this program that violated numerous mandates of the mortal dictator, and there's a possibility that information could come to light. It makes more sense for them to wrap it up on Halsey and go, well, Halsey's the problem. She was the problem. She was the mad scientist. We gave her too much rope, and she did all the horrible things. We weren't aware of it. Plausible deniability. However, when actually push came to shove, when it comes to Osman being obviously Parangoski's heir, so to speak, to being commander-in-chief of ONI, ordering her assassination was basically done under reasonable suspicion, effectively, that she was in cohorts with the enemy. She was in frequent communication with Julam Dama at that time, and she was no longer an inexpendable asset. Obviously, when she was in charge of the Spartan program, she was the brains behind it. If it wasn't for Halsey, the Spartans wouldn't have existed. Mjolnir wouldn't have existed. However, now that Halsey is being set up to be the fool guy, and they've got the Spartan 3 and Spartan 4 programs, it's been academically proven that they no longer need Halsey. So because at that point, Osman thought, well, we don't need her anymore. She's obviously got a bit of a chip on her shoulder because she's obviously an ex-Spartan 2 candidate. We don't need her anymore. We need a full guy to sort of brush the bad sides of the Spartan program under the rug. We can get rid of her and claim that she was in cohorts with the enemy, and we've got all the evidence to support it. We'll just do it, get it done, and then we can walk away from it. And then from that moment on, the Spartan 4 program is all above board. They weren't obviously at that point expecting that Cortana was going to go rogue, and the person most fitting to be able to fix that situation was Halsey. So had they have actually succeeded, if Palmer had succeeded in landing the shot and killed Halsey, humanity would be in a much, much more difficult position when it comes to Halo Infinite, because they would have assassinated the one person that knew Cortana better than John did. The difficulty that we have in that regard is that apparently, again, in the 26th century, we still can't define consciousness. Just as we don't know what consciousness is now. Is it really just a consequence of the amount of connections that are made in our brain, and consciousness just spontaneously comes into being, or is it something transit? Is it something separate from biology? We don't know that. We don't know that now, and we don't apparently know that in the 26th century. I'm inclined to believe the thing that made Cortana so different and so unique was the existence of consciousness, because obviously every AI created before that, every smart AI created before that, was made from the brain of a recently deceased donor, which means that consciousness has gone. Once you die, your consciousness leaves your brain. Whether that's it just winks out and that's it, or it goes somewhere else, it's subject to interpretation or your own personal theological beliefs or whatever. But every smart AI created to that point was created from the brains of a recently deceased donor. So that means it's literally created from the neural pathways, no consciousness involved whatsoever. Cortana was so unique in that she was one of the first AIs that was developed with a living brain, with a consciousness, in theory, intact. I mean, it's still difficult to substantiate intelligence. Is intelligence a consequence of... Am I born with innate intelligence or innate capability for intelligence, or is intelligence something learned in life? is my ability to take on information and process it as a consequence of nature or nurture. So we still don't know that in its entirety. But if we run on that theory, it would make sense then why another reason why Cortana was so brilliant is because she's an AI created of a Flash clone of one of the most brilliant minds in humanity at that time. I mean, it's no secret, Halsey already had 2 doctorates by the time she was 18. So she knows her shit.
Zero, just a very quick question.
No.
Okay.
Go on then.
On the document I sent you earlier.
Sorry?
On the document I sent you earlier, what's this seriously not normal that you've highlighted in like flamboyant pink?
Well, you're not, are you?
Just right in the middle of the fucking document. You said seriously not normal. Thanks, man. I was sat there. I was like, have I done something wrong with this? But no, it's just you being a prick.
Just me being a prick. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
That's like saying your mum gave me. You can't just do him dirty like that.
00?
Yeah.
You just did.
Do you plan on installing windshield wipers on your helmet for the suit?
No.
Oh, that would look funny.
Damn, that was hilarious.
It would be hilarious
Okay,
if
that's
Master Chief just stepped out of a firefight and this little window wiper just popped up out of
Yes,
nowhere.
it's raining. It's like the thought to bear in mind is, okay, yeah, a suit of power armor is awesome. Yeah, I get that. I understand. That it would be awesome to wear a suit of armor that makes you superhuman. But you also got to bear in mind that just the armor technology that goes into something like Mjolnir, just things like shear thickening fluid, impregnated Kevlar weave, just things like modular armor that can be quickly swapped out in the field, things like good situational awareness systems, so you know where you are in relation to your buddies, where you are in relation to the enemies. You can triangulate positions, you can set waypoints. Ideally, there's a form of IFF so you can negate the risk of friendly fire. The systems that go into Mjolnir stand as independent products in their own right that can save lives. And if I've got the means and the know-how to save lives, it's my fucking duty to do so. I understand that there's people tend to, when they're confronted with law enforcement or anything like that, especially if they're up to no good, they see the uniform. They don't see the person that's wearing the uniform. They don't see the fact that person's got
they try to
a
generalize
wife
it.
or a husband at home. They don't think that person's got kids or a mother and a father. They don't see the person. They see the uniform, and that's wrong. And that's true not just for law enforcement, but that's true for security personnel. That's true for troops. And if you consider that, as far as I'm concerned, the troops the armor systems that we're sending our troops out into combat zones with, these guys are putting their lives on the line to basically fight wars that politicians have picked simply because politicians can't be fucking bothered to sit down and have a conversation. They're putting their lives on the line to fight these wars with inferior technology to protect themselves. That's why things like I spoke about it recently. I don't know if you guys have heard of dragon skin armor, but it was a ballistics vest basically that had individual circular discs, ceramic discs of armor, and when it's laminated inside soft armors, it looks like dragon scales, so they call it dragon skin. And because of these individual discs, in a similar vein to what I'm doing with the hexagonal plates, the modular hexagonal plates, it had multi-hit protection. And they tested this stuff with they put this on a mannequin and laid it down on a hand grenade. And when the hand grenade detonated, the armor took all of that explosion. No shrapnel made it through, and there wasn't even significant deformation to the inner circuit. Because that's another big factor with body armor. If you get a big bulge, effectively that bulge is punched into your chest or your stomach or whatever, into your body and caused internal injuries. You don't need that. So this thing was perfectly smooth on the back, and all of the armor took the entirety of the explosion. So troops who were going out to Iraq and Afghanistan were buying this stuff privately. and using it instead of their military issue body armor because it provided them with more protection. The issue, however, is that in extremes of temperature, in particularly hot and arid environments like deserts, or particularly cold environments, and even cycling, like thermal cycling between hot and cold, for example, being in, say, the States, in Texas, Arizona, loading into an aircraft to go, to go out onto an aircraft carrier and across the ocean, going from hot over the ocean, cold weather, get to Iraq or Afghanistan, back to a desert. That thermal cycling from hot, cold, hot, and the changes of humidity degraded the adhesive that was used to laminate those plates together and hold them in position, which meant that by the time these soldiers would get into the battlefield, the adhesive had given way and the plates were slipping, falling, and providing less protection, and in some circumstances had collapsed completely and were rested in the bottom of the vest, meaning they were basically just wearing Kevlar.